Okay, this is mic on. Awesome. It's an interesting experience coming to speak to the Government of Canada. And the reason I say that is because I pulled up with my MacBook. I opened up my MacBook, tried to plug it in. First mistake, right? First mistake, trying to plug in a MacBook, right? Okay, oh, fine, your MacBook's not going to work. Okay, no problem. I have another solution. If we can't get my presentation, I'll just send you the Google Slides. You can't do that either. Sorry, we don't use Google Slides are blocked. Okay, you know what? I have a third solution. I have it on a USB stick. No, sorry, Rod, that doesn't work. You can't use your USB stick either. At that point, I was like, well, can I log into my Gmail on your computer? There was just, at that point, it just wasn't working out. Luckily, we got some sort of hack. We were using someone else's Surface there to get me up. But that was a fun experience, to say the least. Guys, I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm really excited to be able to share a few thoughts on leadership with you. And see, I talk about leadership a lot, and I get to do this as a profession where we train teams and we train individuals, we train executives on developing their leadership capacity. But the difference in this talk specifically that I wanted to get to is how leadership looks differently for you and I. Because leadership does look differently for you and I. Leadership and how we approach it looks differently. Leadership in our own mindset looks a bit differently. And then even if you are a member of Visible Minority and you are a woman, leadership looks even more differently for you. And so I want to share a few stories, share a few ideas with you, and hopefully engage you in a fun little time. And one of the first things, I just finished doing an interview with one of the team members that I work with. So we work with clients, we work with a lot of startups here in the city of Ottawa. And this team is a team of 30 employees. I'm not going to name the specific startup because we're on camera. But I was speaking to their CEO. And I challenge the CEOs and say, have you given all your staff, have you empowered your staff to truly develop as leaders? And this was his answer. His answer was, well, duh, they have the opportunity to. And to me, when someone says they have the opportunity to, is the biggest signal of unawareness in regards to the difference between equality and equity. And I think when we get into leadership for visible minorities, we are really in that discussion of equality and equity. Because simply having the opportunity to, simply having the door open to, doesn't mean people will walk through it because of our lens that's different. And perhaps that's the thesis of this whole talk that I want to get through with you. I think we've made leadership into something bigger than us. I know you've heard this concept before. It's not revolutionary in how I'm bringing it. But a lot of us still in our own mindsets have made leadership into something bigger than us. I know for me. Right? Leadership is meant for the greats, right? The Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the Nelson Mandelas, the Gretas, who are able to make massive change in organizations and across the world. And for us to give ourselves the title of leader, we kind of feel a little ashamed. You're like, what, me? Leader? Nah, right? That's what you think about it. You're like, nah, I sit behind my desk. I'm not a leader, right? And then we come and listen to speakers like myself, and you're like, okay, well, he's speaking, so he's the leader, not me. We constantly take this title and we pass it off. We play hot potato with it, and we pass it off to the next person and the next person, because for us to genuinely think that we're leaders would require that we take a certain amount of responsibility. That's a little scary. See, to genuinely start thinking that we're leaders, we have to kind of shift our mind. But I made leadership into something much bigger than myself. But here's the one concept. Over the last 8 years, I've been working with over 50,000 people on leadership development. Youth in high schools, youth in universities. I've been working with teams and startup teams. I haven't worked with too many government clients, so this is definitely new for me. But we've made one shift and we've realized one thing, is that leadership is not actually a noun, it's a verb. Leadership is about small actions that create a sense of community, that create a sense of belonging. And I'll tell you how I got to that in a little story. See, I would like to take you back to my high school time. I grew up here in Ottawa for the most part. I'll take you back to my high school. I went to Colonel By High School, if anyone here from Ottawa. And I remember in grade 12 here specifically, I'm sitting down having lunch. And if you remember your grade 12 time in high school, you probably sat down to have lunch in the exact same spot every single day, right? With the exact same group of friends, right? So I remember I'm sitting down to have lunch, and I have my little lunch, and my friends are around me, and we're all just talking crap, right? Because that's what we do, right? It's all the gossip, right? There was this new girl at school, this new cute girl, right? That's what we were all talking about. I remember very vividly, I'm there, I'm having this conversation, I turn to one of my friends, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go talk to her. And my friend looks at me and says, bro, you're too ugly, don't do it. Because that's what our friends do, right? That's what and I'm like, no, look at me. He's like, yeah, look at you. And so I brush him aside, and I'm like, pumping myself up, right? Because we all have this inner voice in our head, right? I'm going to go say hi. And she's going to say hi, right? I'm going to say what's up. She's going to say what's up, right? I get myself going. And then my phone rings. It's the first time I ever had a cell phone and an LG Slide. It was a hand-me-down from my dad, an LG Slide. I picked it up, walked off to the side, and it was one of my good friends, my friend, Mohammed. And I know we all have 7 friends named Mohammed. It comes from my family name, but one of my good friends, Mohammed, called me, and he said, Fahad, what are you up to? And I said, I just having lunch with some friends, there's this cute girl, and he's like, bro, don't do it, you're too ugly. And he proceeded to talk to me about this idea he had. He said, Fahad, do you remember the challenge our grade 8 principal gave us? Now, in that moment, I didn't really remember it. He started to remind me. So if I take you back to grade 8, I remember it very vividly because I was grade 8 graduation. Now, grade 8 graduation, if you have children or if you've gone through grade 8 graduation, see, everyone thinks it's one of the most important days of their lives, right? It's like we get really pumped up for it. My dad had me in one of those dad suits. It was too baggy, and one of those fat ties, pinstripes. No one wears those pinstripes, right? I remember grade 8 graduation very specifically, right? I'm walking across stage. And I'm walking across stage, and when you're walking across stage, everyone's thinking the exact same thing. You're thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, right? And someone always falls. And I've got to say, I've been to enough grade 8 graduations. It's always a poor girl because it's the first time she has heels on and her ankles are breaking as she's walking across stage. What happened to my sister? So I'm walking across stage. I get to the end of the stage. You get your magical piece of paper. You're like, I graduated grade 8. I'm awesome. And I walk off the stage. My principal is there waiting for me. So my principal pulled me aside and she said, Fahad, I'm really proud of you. She said, I'm proud of how well your family's doing and the fact that you started to get involved. And I'm proud of the journey that you've been on. See, I grew up in Vanier here in Ottawa. Vanier and Lowertown have the highest densities of low-income housing. My family, if I take you back, lived through the war between Iraq and Kuwait when Iraq invaded in 1990. My father and mother and I and my siblings lived there at the time. My father was born in Kuwait and my mother was born in Kuwait. My grandfather was Iraqi. If you do the math, that made for a political nightmare. After 1991, when Kuwait was freed and its Independence Day, perhaps it was Independence Day for the Kuwaiti people, but not necessarily for any Iraqi who was living in Kuwait. See, it's a strange feeling when you're told in the only place that you called home, and for my mother and father, the only place they called home in their entire life, to be told you're no longer welcome. We were Iraqi citizens living in Kuwait, and Kuwait no longer trusted any Iraqi citizen, did not want any relations with the Iraqi government, and so removed every Iraqi citizen. My father was a teacher, physics teacher. I don't know why anyone would teach physics. He was a physics teacher and he became a principal. After he became principal, he worked directly under the education minister in Kuwait. It was about reforming education, finding new ways to educate our young people. In Kuwait, housing is semi-public, which means you privately own parts of it and the government still technically owns the other part, which means your house can be easily removed from you. Our house was taken away, our jobs was taken away, our entire life was flipped upside down. And from 1991, and the years that would follow, my father and mother and us, we're 6 kids. I have 3 beautiful sisters and 2 amazing brothers. We're to try and find a new place that we could call our own, a new home, a new community, a new place to belong to. Our search for belonging started on those days. Now, we traveled the region. We went to several different areas. We went to Saudi Arabia, went to Pakistan, went to Afghanistan. We found different areas to try and find a new place to call home. My uncle, my mother's sister, had left to Canada in 1991. In 95, he called my dad and said, "I know you've been searching. I think I found the place for you. But be warned, it's pretty cold." And so in 1998, we arrived to Canada. 1998, on October 30th, we arrived to Canada. It was pretty darn cold. We arrived on October 30th, we landed, and it was quite nice because we landed, all 6 of us, and we went to my uncle's place, we unpacked all our stuff, and we settled on the first day, and it was awesome. We're little kids, right? So we're excited. On the next day, we're told that we should go check out the neighborhood. And so we're packing out our stuff, and at about 4 or 5 p.m. on October 31st, we decided it's a good time to go check out the neighborhood. We walk outside, and all we see little monsters and goblins running around knocking on people's doors. We're like, "What is this place?" My mother turned to my father and said, "What is this devil worship? What country have you taken us to?" See, the slight differences in our cultures are things we don't realize until we are displaced of our culture. The slight places where we call belonging, we call home, we don't realize until we're in a place where we don't feel like we belong. So we came to Canada, and we came to Ottawa, and we grew up in this beautiful 3-bedroom home in Vanier. Now, it was a 3-bedroom home, but it was 8 of us. We got 6 kids and my 2 parents. I'm sure a lot of you know a lot about sharing rooms, right? My 3 sisters shared the master bedroom. And I remember my dad put all 3 beds almost next to each other. You could walk right in between. My little brother and I had this other small bedroom in the basement. My mom and dad got the other room. But if you kept count, that meant my older brother didn't have a room. So my dad said, "I'm going to turn the boiler room into a bedroom." We're like, "Dad, you're crazy. You have to turn the boiler room into a bedroom." So he did what any smart Arab dad would do. He went to Walmart. And at Walmart, he bought this little curtain and he draped it right across the boiler. He put it down and he said, "See? It's not a boiler room anymore." I was like, "You're crazy." He bought these little carpets and he laid them down. And he would go, "See? It feels nice." He went to these garage sales and he bought these little pieces of art and he put them up. And there was a picture of a cat. I never owned a cat, but there was a picture of a cat. And he put the art and he said, "See? It looks nice." And then I think he did the smartest thing he could have ever done. He put the PS2 and the TV in the boiler room. And it became the hypest room in the whole house. It became where all the siblings would hang out. It was our little fortress, our little area away from our parents, but where we could all be together. My dad used to call us a little team. I mean, 6 of us, so a basketball team for sure. He would call us a little team because we would always do things together. We were very close together because we found belonging in each other. Because our search for belonging in leaving a country holds you really close with the people that you have. See, we found this really interesting thing in the boiler room, and I would encourage you to check this out at home. You know those little central vacuum holes you have in your walls, right? And as a kid, you don't know what they are, and you open it up and you shove stuff in there, and you're like, right? You're like, "The black hole, whatever goes in never comes out." We realized that if you bent next to it and you yelled inside of it, you had an internal PA system for the whole house. So my mom would say, "Can you call your brother for dinner?" I'd say, "No problem." Oh my! We started doing morning announcements. It's snowing again. See, we grew up in this tiny little house in Vanier. And we went to York Street Public School, where I met my principal. Perhaps one of the few individuals that truly shaped the rest of my life. On that graduation stage, when I walked off and she challenged us, she was so proud of us in her eyes, but she challenged us to come back and help out. See, I was a 13-year-old boy. And you tell a boy to come back and help out, and he's thinking, "But I got other things to do." I got video games, I got girls to chase after, I got, I was still trying to make it to the NBA, still trying if there's any recruiters in the room, right? But you tell a 13-year-old boy that and it doesn't mean much. See, I went on to high school and perhaps I got a little more involved here and there. But when I received a call from my friend while having lunch, he reminded me of that moment. And he said, Father, I have an idea. I want to start a camp for the kids out of York Street Public School. A camp for the kids in Lowertown where we grew up. And my response was, what parent in their right mind do you think will drop off their kids to two 17-year-old brown guys? I was like, you crazy, no one's gonna give me their kids. Like, I don't trust myself with people's kids. He said, Fred, I want to do this camp. I want to give them an opportunity that they never got. That sentence hit me. I want to give them an opportunity that we never got. See, a lot of us in our day-to-day lives have lived through much, and we always look back and say, oh, I wish that was there when I was there. I guarantee a lot of you here say, I wish there was a visible minority network when I first started at the government, because it would have made my career different. You see, leadership is about creating change. Creating change for those, and you might never see or benefit from it, but it's about creating change. That's the definition of leadership. So if we understand that leadership is about creating change, and that it involves small actions that create community, what does that look like? So on that day, I got convinced on the phone. I said to my friend, I said, fine, we'll try to do this camp. We were two 17-year-old boys, and we had no idea what we were doing. I kid you not. We made our first poster on Microsoft Paint. You remember Microsoft Paint? I sure hope you're still making posters on Microsoft Paint here, right? Yeah. We remember we were making a little schedule. We had a piece of paper like, okay, what are we going to do with these kids? And someone was like, we'll play dodgeball. I'm like, yeah, dodgeball, that's a good idea. Someone was like, we'll do a coloring contest. I'm like, yeah, coloring contest, that's great. And then someone said, oh, we should give them grilled cheese for snacks. And that's when the debate broke out. Grilled cheese with ketchup or without ketchup? Right? On the day before camp started, we had to get a community use of schools license to be able to use the school for the camp, but we were both 17 and couldn't sign it. And I tried to tell my mom and dad about this, and my dad says, why are you wasting your time? So I remember forging his signature. Right? Just like, I've seen it enough times, right? It's just, you couldn't forge my mother's signature because she worked at a bank back in Kuwait. If you ever seen their signature is like intense. So the day before camp is starting, and I'm calling a bunch of friends because I realize I perhaps need more volunteers. And I call one of my friends and I say, hey, I need you to come out and volunteer. We're doing this camp thing. And his response is, who on earth is going to give you their kids? I said, I don't know. I have no idea, but I need you there. And he says, well, how many kids are coming? My response was, I don't know. And he said, what do you mean you don't know? Didn't you do a registration day? I said, a registration what? I had no idea to do a registration day. What do you mean? I made a bunch of flyers on Microsoft Paint and I knocked on a bunch of doors. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? He said, what if no kids show up? I said, perfect. He said, what if 100 kids show up? I said, that's why I need you there. And on that first day, we had me and about 15 friends standing in front of the school. And we were just standing there. I swear I thought we were like the Avengers, And we're standing in front of the school with no shirt that says camp. No, we're in our street clothes, waiting for people's children. And the first mother came by. We're all excited. Oh my God, someone's coming. She came by to drop off her child. She walked up, she dropped off her child, and she said, thank you. She said, I'm a single mother, and it's March break. My child is 7 years old, and I can't afford someone to take care of him all day. and I have to work. She said I was going to leave him alone at home. In that moment, I think something in me shifted. See, we don't attach this role of leadership, we don't attach this identity of leadership because we think it requires a lot more. In that moment, I realized that a 17-year-old brown kid from Kuwait who grew up in a boiler room could help someone else out. See, we had 20 kids that showed up. Oh, sorry, I forgot about my slides. This was us as kids when we came to Canada. This was the first house. If you're an immigrant, you always have a house. You always have a picture of when it first snowed, right? I just totally sidetracking you here. But you have a picture of when it first snowed. This was the camp logo. This was camp logo later on. This wasn't the first step. This would be impressive to make on Microsoft Paint. On that first day, we had 20 kids show up. We had 20 kids show up, and we played dodgeball. Some of those kids were good. We had coloring contest. You know how some kids always color really hard on the outside, shade it in. And then we had grilled cheese for snacks with ketchup. See, that moment I think we learned that you don't need a position and you don't need permission to lead. I usually say this point and I usually move on. Because in a Western society that has an individualism lens, the idea of challenging the status quo and going off on your own is part of our cultural heritage and cultural language. But in the eastern part of the world, where our lens is more collectivism, this notion doesn't actually sit as well. The notion of challenging the status quo in a collectivism society is frowned upon. Collectivism societies like eastern parts of the world, in China and Japan, certain collectivism societies in the Middle East and in Central Africa have the same concepts. The traditions, hierarchies, and elders are to be held. And the idea for you to push past and challenge a tradition is not as accepted. And unless you recognize that in your own lens, you've probably been questioning why you're not willing to push beyond. See, a lot of times we're not sure why we're holding ourselves back. We're not sure what stories we've been telling in our own mind around leadership. But the reality is, you don't need a position. You don't need permission to lead. The definition of leaders are those who create change without position. But far too many of us wait till we have a position. See, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with executives and managers. And I love when I work with new managers. Because a new manager will tell me, Fahd, I'm officially a leader. And I say, no, you officially have a title. A title of a manager doesn't make you a leader. But there's a big difference in how we do this and how we go. So you don't need position, you don't need a permission. See, on that first day of camp, I remember it very vividly because we get all the kids to take out their candy. Remember, I'll get all the kids to take out their candy. Why? Because some kids bring candy that has peanuts. Peanuts make people die. Cool. Allergies makes sense. I'm like, I got 20 kids. I got to make sure I keep 20 kids. That's the way I do it. And so we get them to take out all the candy. One kid over here pulls out a pack of Dunkaroos. I don't know if you remember Dunkaroos, but they were like these really good, snacks. This next kid over here had a pack of fruit roll-ups. I was like, oh, nice, nice. This one kid over here had a jumbo bag of sweet chili heat Doritos. I was like, okay, these kids are balling. This is awesome, I'm excited because I'm like, I'm gonna have some of this, right? And then this kid sitting right next to me pulls out a box of dry mac and cheese. He shakes the box, and he looks at me in the eyes and says, I like dry mac and cheese. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm trying to hold it in. I'm like, what? So I hold it in, I'm like, sorry, what was that? And his grin opens up, his eyes open up, he shakes it again, goes, and he says, I like dry mac and cheese. And that's it. I'm about to burst out laughing. Like, this is the funniest thing ever. You like, what? And one of my co-counselors is watching this happen. He's watching this happen, standing here on the side, and he sees this, and he comes running in. He says, oh my God, is that dry mac and cheese? And the kid's like, mm-hmm. And he's like, can I have some? And the kid's like, mm-hmm. I'm watching this happen. I'm like, are these fools out of their mind? Like, and he hands over the box. The counselor opens up the box. He puts his hand in. He grabs a handful and he starts eating it. And I can see it going down his throat, just like the noodles. I'm watching this happen and I'm like, no way. Then the kid with the Dunkaroos, the kid with the fruit roll-ups, and even the kid with the jumbo bag of sweet chili heat Doritos all turn to this one kid and say, trade ya. And the kids start trading. And they pull out the little bag of cheese. And they start spreading it on the noodles. And I'm watching this happen. I'm like, what alternate universe am I in? Like, this must be bad for them. We should stop them, guys. Like, and I pull my co-counselor aside. I pull him aside and say, bro, what's wrong with you? So you don't seriously like dry mac and cheese, do you? And he said, nah, that was one of the most disgusting things I've ever tried. I said, well, why'd you do it? He said, Fad, sometimes we have to make a split-second decision that can change the course of someone's life. And I said, yeah, that kid could have died. Death, life, we're changing course for sure. Now the kid went on to be one of the coolest kids at camp. He had such a phenomenal time. One of the coolest kids at camp. To this day, I don't remember his name because we called him Mac. And he had such a great time. Now, I got an email from his mother at the end of camp. And the email subject line said, what have you done with my child? Question mark. I was like, this is the moment I get sued, right? Like, this is, we're waiting for this moment, right? This is the, I was like panicking. I was like, I read the next line. She says, I believe you've abducted my child and given me another one. What do you say to that? Nuh-uh. Like, and then I read the next paragraph. It says, my child has been to special schools and special programs. He's seen psychologists, psychotherapists. He's been on several different types of medication. And until recently, we never knew what was wrong with him. He's never been able to make friends on his own because he has severe social anxiety. He says, but today, he's in the park by himself, making friends. And in that moment, I understood the power of eating your dry mac and cheese. See, I understood the power of a split-second decision that created a moment of belonging. See, had I laughed in that moment, those kids would have never traded. Had my co-counselor not came and jumped in and made eating a little box of dry mac and cheese cool, his nickname would probably still have been Mac, but for all the wrong reasons. See, one action that created belonging shifted the life of an individual. What we understand from the science and the psychological science of leadership is that we follow those who make us feel like we belong. For us to start as minorities and visible minorities on our journey of leadership, here's the challenge of leadership. Are you ready for it? The challenge of leadership is that leadership by definition is about creating change. However, we follow leaders who belong to the norm of the group. Catch that. How does someone make change while still belonging to the norm? That's the psychological challenge in the research that we do in regards to leadership. I'm not going to get too deep into the research for you because that'll bore you, but the challenge is, how does someone lead, challenging the norm, but has to be accepting the norm? The group has to accept them as a figure that creates belonging. So here's the easy, actually easier than we all think. The majority of us has struggled with belonging in the first place. Because we have grew up in a society that's different than ours, different than what we look perhaps, that celebrates different types of people, finding heroes that look like us. So we never felt 100% like we always belong. Sometimes I would walk into boardroom meetings. I was doing a lot of work with Carleton University. And around the table was all old white men. And perhaps for a second you think, do I belong here? And we challenge our own sense of belonging. How can we be leaders and create senses of belonging if we haven't accepted our own sense of belonging first? One action that created belonging made a difference for that child, and I know I'm giving you an example of camp because I think it's one that we can all relate to. I think it's one that we can pull and realize that leadership is small, consistent actions in our workplace. If you're able to accept the power and impact of our actions by stepping up and creating little belonging cues in your workplace, what you start to do is you start to create a circle of influence. And a circle of influence doesn't come from your ability to tell other people what to do. It comes from the ability where other people feel like you make them feel like they belong. And we all know when we've met someone who made us feel like we belong. And I'll give you the best example, because it's a moment example that a lot of you have. If you're ever traveling, you're traveling in Mexico, and then you see another Canadian. You're like, oh my God, a Canadian! In that moment, that person is just as much a stranger as anyone else, right? But yet you feel like you belong to them. See, belonging is a very fundamental human need. It's part of our Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's part of our emotional requirement to belong to a group, to belong to a society, to belong to something. And if we can create belonging in others, we've taken our journey of leadership. And we actually are phenomenal at doing it, especially if you come from collectivist cultures. Belonging is something you're better at doing. See, here's the thing. We have our own challenges due to our mindsets of our cultures, but we have our advantages. And if we can rewrite the story in our own head around what are advantages that come with our cultures, then we're able to actually surpass the next things. See, that camp that we started when we were 17, we ran throughout university. 5 years, we raised $40,000. We helped 250 families. It was one of the coolest journeys of my entire life. Now, I could go on and on about all the projects we currently work on and bigger clients and big names and this and that, but no. This is the story that reminds me that all leadership was a moment of belonging. And it's about creating small, consistent actions that create a sense of community. And we can do that. This is the step one, this network. We create a community, you create belonging, you get to know each other. See, belonging isn't created by titles, by positions. It's created by emotional bonds that I like you and you understand me. You understand my issues, you understand my problems. See, my entire story that I share with you here today is based on this exact philosophy. You want me to break it down to tell you how I psychologically manipulated you the whole time? The entire story I told you was to get you to believe in me. To take you on me and my family's journey of struggle so that you believe that we belong to the same story, because we do. And after you believe that we belong to the same story and that I understand your struggles and I understand your struggles, your ears open up and you say, okay, I'm willing to learn. We're not led by people we don't feel like we belong to. So your opportunity here to be leaders is that simple. It's not about creating a huge change. It's not about transforming the entire government of Canada, your departments, your teams. It is about creating a space, because that leads to the next step. See, today we redefine leadership with our company called Unicorn Labs. We're a small agency of 5 people. We work with teams across the country. And throughout all the research, I'm going to go through it very quickly because I've been telling you stories about all the research. We've identified that psychological safety is the most important thing in determining teams. That absence of vulnerable trust is the biggest dysfunction of a team. That belonging is the key factor in highly successful groups. That eating your dry mac and cheese is all it comes down to. Learn to lead from your own place, not the place. Simply recognize popularity. And if we can start to recognize what actually makes good leaders, the decision makers on the table can start promoting those who create belonging, can start promoting those who have level 5 leadership, instead of us promoting the same style of leadership that we have in the past. This is the last point, and I'm done because I know I've gone a little over time. You see this little arrow that happens in the boardroom? A lot of us learn leadership, if you think of it as an arrow and it's pointing this way, a lot of us learn leadership about us being on top of the arrow, leading the forces and leading the team this way. If you've ever done a personality assessment, you realize that that's actually only one style of leadership. And the leaders show up in different forms. That's one style leader. The other style leader that we have, we call those direct leaders. The other style leaders here, we call them the inspirational leaders, the ones that stand in the middle of the pack. Because what are they doing? They're riling everyone up. They're getting everyone going. They might not lead the way, being the direct leader, but they're the ones in the middle of the pack. Then I have my leaders who stand here. These are my supportive leaders. They make sure no one else is left behind. They make sure that the entire group is moving along. Then I have my cautious leaders. These are the people who make sure that they stand on the side of the group and they make sure that everyone that's going along has their boots done up and is marching the right way. And if they need help, they'll help them. See, leadership comes in all styles and forms, but as soon as we enter a position of leadership, we think, well, I have to be that way for people to take me seriously. And that happens the most to my female colleagues. We think we have to take on the male attributes of leadership in order to lead. But unless you understand your personality style and your workplace style and your strength, you'll be leading in the wrong spot and doing yourself and your people a disservice. Lead from your point of strength, not what you believe should be the point of strength. Guys, thank you so much for having me up. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Fahad.